When Jacob learned that there was grain for sale in Egypt, he said to his sons, "Why do you look at one another?" And he said, "Behold, I have heard that there is grain for sale in Egypt. Go down and buy grain for us there, that we may live and not die." So 10 of Joseph's brothers went down to buy grain in Egypt. But Jacob did not send Benjamin, Joseph's brother, with his brothers, for he feared that harm might happen to him. Thus the sons of Israel came to buy among the others who came, for the famine was in the land of Canaan. Now Joseph was governor over the land. He was the one who sold to all the people of the land. And Joseph's brothers came and bowed themselves before him with their faces to the ground. Joseph saw his brothers and recognized them, but he treated them like strangers and spoke roughly to them. "Where do you come from?" he said. They said, "From the land of Canaan to buy food." And Joseph recognized his brothers, but they did not recognize him. And Joseph remembered the dreams that he had dreamed of them. And he said to them, "You are spies. You have come to see the nakedness of the land." They said to him, "No, my lord, your servants have come to buy food. We are all sons of one man. We are honest men. Your servants have never been spies." He said to them, "No, it is the nakedness of the land that you have come to see." And they said, "We, your servants, are 12 brothers, the sons of one man in the land of Canaan, and behold, the youngest is this day with our father, and one is no more." But Joseph said to them, "It is as I said to you, you are spies. By this you shall be tested. By the life of Pharaoh you shall not go from this place unless your youngest brother comes here. Send one of you, and let him bring your brother while you remain confined, that your words may be tested, whether there is truth in you. Or else, by the life of Pharaoh, surely you are spies." And he put them all together in custody for 3 days. On the 3rd day Joseph said to them, "Do this, and you will live, for I fear God. If you are honest men, let one of your brothers remain confined where you are in custody, and let the rest go and carry grain for the famine of your households. And bring your youngest brother to me. So your words will be verified, and you shall not die." And they did so. Then they said to one another, "In truth, we are guilty concerning our brother, in that we saw the distress of his soul when he begged us and we did not listen. That is why this distress has come upon us." And Reuben answered them, "Did I not tell you not to sin against the boy? But you did not listen. So now there comes a reckoning for his blood." They did not know that Joseph understood them, for there was an interpreter between them. Then he turned away from them and wept. And he returned to them and spoke to them. And he took Simeon from them and bound him before their eyes. And Joseph gave orders to fill their bags with grain, and to replace every man's money in his sack, and to give them provisions for the journey. This was done for them. Then they loaded their donkeys with their grain and departed. And as one of them opened his sack to give his donkey fodder at the lodging place, he saw his money in the mouth of his sack. He said to his brothers, "My money has been put back. Here it is in the mouth of my sack." At this their hearts failed them, and they turned trembling to one another, saying, "What is this that God has done to us?" When they came to Jacob their father in the land of Canaan, they told him all that had happened to them, saying, "The man, the lord of the land, spoke roughly to us and took us to be spies of the land. But we said to him, 'We are honest men. We have never been spies. We are 12 brothers, sons of our father. One is no more, and the youngest is this day with our father in the land of Canaan.' Then the man, the lord of the land, said to us, 'By this I shall know that you are honest men. Leave one of your brothers with me, and take grain for the famine of your households, and go your way. Bring your youngest brother to me. Then I shall know that you are not spies, but honest men, and I will deliver your brother to you, and you shall trade in the land.' As they emptied their sacks, behold, every man's bundle of money was in his sack. And when they and their father saw their bundles of money, they were afraid. And Jacob their father said to them, 'You have bereaved me of my children. Joseph is no more, and Simeon is no more, and now you would take Benjamin? All this has come against me.' Then Reuben said to his father, "Kill my 2 sons if I do not bring him back to you. Put him in my hands, and I will bring him back to you." But he said, "My son shall not go down with you, for his brother is dead, and he is the only one left. If harm should happen to him on the journey that you are to make, you would bring down my gray hairs with sorrow to Sheol."
When I was taking a class on war and peace, I was a student. I was not taking the class for others, but I was a student sitting in the class. One thing that my professor shared, it made me to think, and it caught my attention. And that was that our criminal justice system is as such that when a crime is committed, the person who, the whole system is as such, it doesn't do anything for the victim. The victim doesn't get back any kind of, nothing is given to, nothing is received by him or her. And also, the system is as such, it really doesn't do much for the perpetrator who had committed the crime. He is forced to go through some punishment, but ultimately it doesn't guarantee whether it's going to have any kind of change within him. I'm not saying that we have to remove all, but it is very interesting that how our criminal justice system is incomplete. The punishment that is given, it's incomplete. It really doesn't put everything in the right place. The damage that has been done is really not, taken care of fully. But when we look into the scripture, we see God's way of doing things is not incomplete. Instead, it's complete. Everything is made whole. You know the Hebrew word shalom. Shalom is not just peace. Shalom means completeness, wholeness, a balanced, everything, it is in right place. That is what shalom means. And God always works in that way. God makes sure everything is restored back to how it was. And today also in this morning, we will look into one of the stories in the Bible which talks about how God brings everything, how God restores everything. This is one of the, this is almost like the high point or the climax of Joseph's story that we have heard again and again from Sunday school, right? Joseph was having dreams, and then his brothers were not happy with him. They were upset with and jealous about his, so-called claim of being, blessed or going to be the leader. And as a result, they sold him. And then we have a lot of other incidences. And then we come to chapter 42, and we see that how everything comes back when his brothers had to face the thing that they did in the past. And this is starting of the story. Now, chapter 42, it doesn't tell everything that happens. Instead, it is the starting. Now, there will be another 3-4 chapter before the brothers come to know that their brother is Joseph. Before Joseph comes out and tell, I am Joseph. But then this is a starting point. And this morning, we'll look into how God starts this restoration process. Now, the relationship between Joseph and his brothers were broken. The relationship within the family was also damaged. If you look here, you see that Jacob is almost in a very fearful, obsessive state where he is not even ready to let Benjamin go. We know from the story previously that he really loved Joseph. He thought that Joseph is going to be the next chosen one from their leader. Traditionally, the eldest one would be the leader, but then from his own life, he saw that even though he was not the youngest one, he was the chosen one. And also, he loved Joseph's mother more than his other wife. So he was looking forward, and all the dreams that Joseph was having, if you remember the first dream that Joseph had, that the sheaf of grain, his one was standing, all the other were bowing down. So when his brother heard that dream, they said, oh, so you are saying you will be the leader? We have to bow down before you? So they were very upset. Now, the interpretation was their brother's interpretation. Okay? And somehow Jacob also believed that interpretation. Jacob got upset when in the next dream, when they say sun and the moon also will bow down to him. It represents that The mother and father also will bow down to him, and Jacob didn't like that part. But then other than that, we see that Jacob was always thinking as Joseph as the leader of the group. He is going to be the next patriarch. And we see with that his mind was set there. And when he got the news that Joseph died, what was he completely lost his composure. He thought that, oh, what did I do? I couldn't take care of the chosen one. He is going to be the next leader, and he is dead. And that took him to such a situation that he became so scared of letting Benjamin go away from him at all. He was like, we see later part in the narrative when Simeon was there and they had to take Benjamin with them. He said no. He's ready to sacrifice Simeon, but he is not ready to let Benjamin go. So we see that the relationship within the family was fractured. It was not healthy. Now, from the previous stories, we know that the family was not really balanced and proper because there was continuous competition between the two wives and the children. But in spite of that, it became more fractured after Joseph was sold off. And we see that in such a situation, they came to a place where they were forced to go through this restoration process. Now, the first thing that I want to point out in this restoration process is reorientation. You see, the first 5 verses, we see that Jacob comes to his sons and said, "Why are you looking at each other? Go, there is grain in Egypt." Now, Jacob was old by this time, right? And we see that Jacob is telling his son that, why are you looking at each other? That means they might have got the news of Egypt having grain even before Jacob, right? The old man of the house, he is getting the news, but the youngsters might have gotten before that. But they still didn't do anything about it. Instead, they are looking at each other. Now, most of the commentator translate or tells it as being idle, looking at each other, not doing anything. In our local language also we say, right, just staring at each other, like sitting, doing nothing. So most of the commentators translate it like that or explain it like that. I have a direct translator at home, and he said that the verb or whatever, the construction, it is such a way, it means looking at each other more in a confrontational way. It is not simply, so he's saying that the grain has, the food storage has reduced at home. And they are a big family. 10 of them are there. Their families are there. So the need for food has increased. So they were not in a very cordial term with each other. They were confrontational with each other for the need of the grain. So we see that whether you tell that they are sitting idly or you say that they are more confrontational with each other, whatever the situation is, it is the fact is that they were just looking within themselves. They were looking within themselves for the solution instead of looking out. Their orientation had to be moved out of them looking at themselves than to look out. And we see Jacob doing that. So why are you looking at each other's face? Instead, go to Egypt and find the grain. They have the grain there. Now, why do you think, even though they might have got the news first, why do you think that they avoided that? I feel they are very much scared of what they will see or they may face once they go out to that side. You remember they sold off Joseph. They didn't want to go back to find Joseph. They didn't want to face something that they have done which was wrong. I've been a student for a very, very long time, so I really trying to relate with all of you this side. the most tough thing is to repeat a class, right? Why it is so tough? You have to go back and, you have to really look back to the failing and the mistakes that you have done. And you have to get over it. It's a tough thing. In 2010, I was writing my MTH thesis. And by 2010, I was married already. So after we got married, we went back to do our final year. And till November, I had to finish my thesis. And then by December, the result will come. And then by March, we graduate. So accordingly, we planned thing. And so as soon as I submitted my dissertation or thesis of MTH, we said, let's start planning our family. We don't want to delay. So by the time I got back the corrected thesis I got back, I was already 3 months pregnant with my first son. And it was a very bad time. I couldn't look at the screen. I would vomit 2-3 times a day. And my everybody gets back their thesis chapter. There are corrections here and there. But I got back my thesis with a correction of inclusion of one. The second examiner wanted me to include one full chapter. He said he was not happy with the way it is written. He said, no, you need to include one more chapter. If you have written any assignment, you will know the hardest thing is to really go and revise. It's very boring, and I have to, with my health, I have to write one full chapter. I was so pissed. I was so angry and upset. I went even till the principal to say, I'm okay if I don't get the marks. Just let me pass. I don't want to write again. So we know that it is difficult to really go back and redo, and especially when you have made mistake. If it's something that talks about your glory, your honor, you really want to go back again and again, right? That's why we like our birthdays every year, because we are the center, we get attention. But if it's something where we have done something wrong or something bad, we really don't want to revisit it. So we see the brothers of Joseph were not really very excited to go out and revisit or come in face to face with something that they have done. What are we scared of facing? This morning, if God is reminding you something that you did that needs to work out, that needs to go back and revisit, I want to encourage all of us. Let's not delay it. Let's not run away like Joseph's brothers. Instead, let's reorient our focus, go back there and finish it. I include that one chapter, and I finished it. It was tough, but at least I finished it. We need to make things complete. We cannot leave it halfway. The second thing that I want to bring into our focus is realization. A lot of realization happens in this chapter. This is a very big chapter, and to preach an expository sermon from that, it cannot be done in 20 minutes or 30 minutes. But there are certain things that stuck to me, and I want to share with all of you. And the second thing is the realization. There are two groups that have realizations. First, we'll look into Joseph's realization. As soon as his brothers comes in, Joseph realizes who are they. He recognizes them. His brothers didn't recognize them. Now, there will be a very good reason for them not recognizing. In the previous chapter, we heard that Joseph was Egyptianized. He looks like an Egyptian. His head might be shaved. Sometimes they color their eyes. They wear a lot of other kind of ornaments. So Joseph looked very different from the way he used to look when he was a teenager, when they sold him off. And also, another thing that it's said here is they kept their head down. He was a governor. He was up there. You cannot just look directly into the eyes of somebody superior, and in the olden days at least. That's not acceptable. I'll give you another one story from my own life. I grew up in North India, and we were three sisters. So in our house, we were very much empowered and encouraged to be very bold and strong. That's how my parents brought us up. So I have always had this habit of looking people in the eyes and talk. I don't like I feel it uncomfortable. I feel not giving importance to the person if you're talking to them and not looking into their eyes. That's my habit. Now, when I got married in Coimbatore. I didn't get married in Calcutta. And when I remembered when we were about to leave the after getting married, we are leaving the procession. Balu gave me a small instruction. He said, keep your eyes down. Don't look at everybody, because actually, if he wouldn't told me, I would have done. I would have looked around, and people whom I knew, I might have smiled at them and gone. But I said, no, just keep your eye down. And he said, that would have been acceptable in that situation. Now, this is little out. But anyway, we see that Joseph's brother did not recognize Joseph, but Joseph recognized his brother. Now, what is the other recognition that happens for Joseph? You know, he saw them and then said, you are spies. You are spies. Well, what did the brothers said in response? We are honest men. We are honest men. So Joseph recognized that his brothers were still not ready to accept or internalize the fact that they have done something really, really bad. It is not simple fluke or simple mistake. They intentionally sought to harm him. They were sure that he might have died, because what they did, the chances were that we read Joseph's life after he was sold into slavery. There were every possible way for him to be dead by this time. So they were seeking to kill him, to end his life. So it is not a simple thing. And we see that Joseph's brothers are testifying about themselves what? We are honest men. They are not at all honest, but they could still stand in front and boldly say, no, we are very honest people. So we see that Joseph realized nothing much have changed. They still bent on claiming themselves to be honest. Another thing Joseph realized, the dream, he said, Joseph remembered the dream that he had. Once his brother comes down and asks him for the grain, the dream was how it was interpreted. That, how his brothers understood it, that Joseph is going to be their leader. He is going to be above them. But we see the story, this Joseph and his brother's story, if we see, he was not the leader of their group. He was not the next patriarch. Instead, we see that till Jacob it comes, and then somehow the 12 tribes or the 12 brothers they get equal leadership. It gets fragmented after Jacob. We traditionally put Joseph as the leader, but Joseph is not the leader. Instead, if you see Christ, genealogy of Christ, it was Judah. Judah became the ancestor, not Joseph. So what was the dream about? The dream was not about Joseph being the leader of their brothers. Instead, Joseph was to be the channel through whom the food and everything is going to be provided to everybody. Sometimes we make mistake or wrong interpretation of what God is telling us. Now, I don't blame Joseph because Bible doesn't say Joseph is the one who interpreted it. Joseph dreamt it and he shared it, and his brothers are the one who interpreted it. When Jesus, in life of Jesus, when Jesus was there preaching about the kingdom of God and all, what did Jesus' disciple reaction was? Jesus' disciple mother came and said, when you become the king, let one of my sons sit on the right side and another on the left side. His disciples frequently quarrel among themselves to decide who is the greatest among them. Peter said, no, 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 don't go down to Jerusalem. It is dangerous. You stay up here. Because they were thinking that Jesus is going to bring the kingdom of God, mean he is going to defeat the Romans' rule and establish the kingdom of Israel, and he is going to be the king. They completely misunderstood what was the mission of Messiah. The coming of the Messiah, the work of the Messiah was already revealed to them long time ago. And they didn't understand that. Instead, they misunderstood it badly. And they always thought that how they are going to get political power. How Jesus is going to establish a kingdom and he is going to be the king and they are going to be ruling with them. They are going to get the power in their hand. But we see that's their complete wrong understanding. And Jesus again and again refuting them that no, this is not like that. He says, kingdom of God is like the children. Unless you turn and become like a child, you cannot enter the kingdom of God. So it is not what you are thinking. Here we see Joseph dream. He remembered his dream that it was not necessary for him to become their leader. Instead, it was for him to be the channel through whom God's blessing is going to come to all of them. How many times we make mistake with our interpretation of what God is telling us? Are we focused in only the worldly things? Because if we are, I'm sure we all will make mistake. Just like Joseph's brother, just like Jesus' disciple. We are chosen for what? We are separated for what? Is it so that the glory and power will be ours? Or is it that we become the channel? We become the channel through which everybody is going to be blessed. It is very important for us to understand why we are chosen, what God has revealed to us. Otherwise, unnecessary trouble will come. Unnecessary wrong way of thinking will develop for people around us. We should remember we are channel through which God is going to bless others. In the process, if we are lifted, we are lifted. In the process, if we are going to be the root and nobody realizes we are going to be the foundation, still God is going to use us as a channel of his blessing for his people. Even the role of Israel was exactly that. God didn't choose Israel to be a separate kind of people who will always get God's blessing. No. Israel was chosen particularly to be blessing for others, to bring God's message, God's word for the others. We should know why we are chosen. Now, another group of people who had certain realization, and that is we see brothers of Joseph. Remember, at the end when they were said, no, you cannot go, you have to leave somebody, and you cannot get this, and all the rules and all the conditions when Joseph was putting in front of them, they were face to face. They were confronted with their problem, what their sins or what they have done. And we see their brothers, what they said. Why this is happening to us? This is happening to us because of what we have done to our brother. A huge realization. It takes a lot for us to realize where we have gone wrong. And we see that they realized their mistake. In this whole story, till Joseph revealed himself, there are many instances where it says Joseph went back and he cried. This was the first time when he heard his brother realizing their sins, that he goes out and he cries. In a restoration process, it's very important that the victim get to hear that the other person realizes that what he or she has done is really had harmed them, and it is really bad, and it's really had damaged. As I said in the beginning, in our criminal justice system, this doesn't happen. The system is as such, it never let the other person go through that realization process that what I did was wrong. And the victim never gets to hear that the other person realizes that it was wrong. But in God's design, there is a place for where people have to realize that yes, what we have done is wrong. And it heals. It heals the victim when he hears that yes, what I did was wrong. That's why when you have problem with any relationship, the person who have suffered, who is the victim in that problem, needs to hear from you or hear from me. Yes, what I did, I realize it was wrong. I know that I hurt you. You just saying that much, it starts a big healing process for the victim who suffered it. So as we, children of God, of same family, it's very important for us to really realize where we have fallen short, where we have hurt others. That's why it's very important for us to go back again and again, even though it is not a very nice experience, but to go back and say, what was my role? What did I do wrong in this one? All of you are here, young ones, as you are living in a hostel, you will have so many conflicts with your brothers and with your friends, and it's very important that not just finding fault with the other person, but also looking at yourself and seeing, where did I go wrong? It is a very good practice to do it from now, because I'll tell you, when you come to our age, it will become more difficult. But if you start it from now, it would be easier to let the other person know that whom you have hurt, that yes, I realize what I did is wrong. The third thing that I want to share here is the ruckus that happens. I want to put everything with R. That's why I have to find a word that starts with R. Ruckus is the confusion, the problem, and the trouble that happens after that. We see, I said this is the process, right? Restoration process. After realization, now, realization is not everything. There are many times we realize we are sinner, but then we don't do anything about it. Many people will openly say, yes, I am a sinner. But what you want to do about it? Nothing. This is fine. Just the way it is. I'm going ahead with what I'm doing. So realization alone is not enough. After realization, what happens? Now, after realization is not my portion, but my portion is the confusion and the trouble that starts after that comes to the brother's life. In the restoration process, first is reorientation, second I said is realization, and third that I will share today is the ruckus that happened, all the confusion and the problem that came to them. Joseph again and again tests his brothers. He keeps Simeon and said, no, you cannot take, one of you have to stay, others can go. And when they went, without telling them, he put back the silver back in their bag, right? I don't know whether Joseph did it out of goodwill or Joseph did it out of to make their life miserable when they go back. Because we know that their life was miserable after they went back, right? They saw the silver and they were so much in trouble. They said, oh God, why this is happening with us? Because they were scared that the Egyptians are going to catch them and said, any blame can come upon them. So they were very worried. So I don't know why Joseph did like that. And my Old Testament commentary at home, he said that the narrator leaves that gap for the people who are reading it so that you can fill in. You can fill in what you want to feel, whether you want to say that Joseph was being good and gave, or Joseph was testing them and trying to make their life more miserable. So whatever it is, I would take the second one, that Joseph was trying to make their life difficult. It was not going to be easy. First of all, they kept one of their brother and they went back. They found that they have silver, they didn't take the money, so they were not sure what is this going to have an effect on Simeon who was left there. What if they charge Simeon that your brother have, stole the money from us and things like that, so we are punishing you. So that's one trouble that they had. And they came back and they shared everything with their father. And we know Jacob in his old age, with his obsession with Benjamin, was not at all willing to let go of Benjamin. He said, no. We know Reuben said, you can kill my two sons if we don't bring him back. But his father was like, no, no way. Let everything go wherever it is going, whatever trouble happens. I'm not going to send Benjamin with you. So we see that they are in big trouble. I'm sure from the time that they came back, the 9 brothers, they were constantly having trouble in their heart. How do we solve this one? What do we do? Because after this, if we need grain and we go back and don't take Benjamin, we are not going to get anything. And then the governor would think of us as spies. Because the governor said, if you want to prove your story as true, bring Benjamin. So we see that they go through a very tough time, confusion time, difficulties. In your restoration process, if you don't go through that process of tough time, difficulties, confusion, trouble, your restoration will not be very effective, or it's not going to be really restored. So in the restoration process, that is a very important time. You know, we come to Christ, we give our life, and then we know about a process called sanctification, right? Sanctification is a process. See, as soon as you accept Jesus Christ, automatically you don't become a very good holy person. As brother was telling, we still have weaknesses. We still have failings. We make mistakes. We fall into trouble, temptation. Those are all testing time. Those are time of wreckers. God is trying to restore us back to our wholeness, the way He created us. With the sin, we were distorted. But with the process of sanctification, with the discipling, we are restored back slowly, slowly. And this restoration process is not easy. You know the fruit of the Spirit? You know, one thing, when I was in the Bible college, I wanted to develop one fruit of the Spirit. And that was patience. I said, God, I want to be a patient person. I want to be very patient with others. And today also, after the experience, I really scared to pray about any of the other fruits now. When I said I want to be a patient person, I thought God will just drop it and I will become a patient person, right? God made me go through situation where it was very difficult to be patient. And the biggest one that I got is my second son. You know, God made me patient by giving a very difficult son. I just don't know how to handle him. You just cannot, beating doesn't work, punishing doesn't work, coaxing doesn't work, nothing works. Only there are times when just I have to be patient. I just have to be patient and just, you know, sometimes just press my teeth and just let it pass. So when you pray for something in the restoration process, God makes you go through very, very difficult time. And that helps in the restoration process. And we see later, other chapters, Joseph's brothers goes through more and more tests. It's not one time. Like repeatedly, they have so many things that happen. After the silver coins that were given, there were silver cups that were put, and a lot of time it happens. Till they come to a position where they are restored, and Joseph opens up and said, I am Joseph. Amazing story, this one. It really challenges me that Joseph really never thought of punishing his brothers. He forgave them. They were half brothers, right? They grew up in a family which was constantly competing with each other. But he loved his brothers and he was willing to forgive them. But he makes sure that they go through the process of restoration. God also wants us to go through the process of restoration. If there are any areas in our life where we are not whole, I promise you that as you walk with God, God will take you through this process of restoration. God will reorient your life. God will make you realize this is where it is wrong. And then God will make you go through the trouble, the confusion, the trouble, the thing. And at last you would be the process. At the end, we know the story of Joseph. The relationship was restored. So this morning, from the story of Joseph and his brothers, I want to remind you that we are in the process of restoration, and we will be reoriented, and we will be made realized what are the things we are lacking, and also we will go through a wrecked state, and God will restore us at the end of it. May God bless all of us.